Good day, and welcome to episode 3 of the Abstract Barcode podcast. I am your host, Christopher, where each and every weekday I bring you the news that you may not be aware of, while commenting and criticizing on it to the best and worst of my ability. So, without any further ado, let's get right into the news. Oh, before I start, happy Ides of March. March 15th. Happy International Stab a Friend in the Back Day. If you haven't done that, do it, I guess. You know, have fun with that. Okay. First story comes from The Independent, called independent.co.uk by Ryan Ryan Hooper. And it is 5-second rule for food dropped on the floor approved by germ scientist. Expert Professor Anthony Hilton says morsels swiftly retrieved from ground are safe to eat. Really? The article states food that has been dropped on the floor is usually safe to eat under the so-called 5-second rule, a scientist has said. Germ expert Professor Anthony Hilton from Ashton University said that although retrieving these morsels can never be completely without risk, there is little to be concerned about if the food is only there momentarily. He said, quote, eating food that has spent a few moments on the floor can never be entirely risk-free. Duh. Imagine it's on the floor and you dropped it on in a little tiny puddle or something. Is it safe? No, not really. The article goes on to say, quote, this is not to say that germs can't transfer from the floor to the food. Our research has shown that the nature of the floor surface, the type of food dropped on the floor, and the length of time it spends on the floor can all have an impact on the number that it can transfer, end quote. The article says it comes as a survey of 2,000 people found... It comes as a survey of 2,000 people found 79% admitted to eating food that had fallen on the floor. If I drop food on the floor in my house, sure, I'll eat it. But if I drop it on the floor in like a restaurant or out in public or anywhere else, no. I mean, if you dropped it on the floor in a bathroom, would you eat it? Probably not. It's pretty stupid in my opinion. I mean, like, really stupid. You could get sick from that. Yeah. Okay, next story comes from TulsaWorld.com. And it is state senator investigated after teenage boy found in his hotel room, district attorney says. This does not have an editor to give credit to. Oh well. Super 8 manager confirms legislature stay at hotel. Text messages with youth under review. Police here are investigating why State Senator Ralph Shorty was in a hotel room with a teenage boy last Thursday. Police are reviewing text messages. Blah, 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 blah. Shorty is 35 and was questioned. And that's... Oh, wow. So I basically gave the gist of the article, and there's only like a couple more paragraphs, and it doesn't say anything. Just that, basically, a state senator was investigated because a teenage boy was found in his hotel room. That's all we know. It's kind of like that South Park scene where the guy's reporting the news. Hey, can you tell us what's going on? There have been reports of rioting and looting and all this stuff. So there's been reports. Have you seen any of it? No. I'm just hearing about it. I haven't seen anything. So you don't know if it's happening. No, but we think it is. Yeah. Next story comes from cbc.ca, Canada. Oh, Canada. Half of Canadians polled support marijuana legalization. This is by Justin McElroy. Hey, that name sounds familiar. I'm gonna have to do some research and see if that's who I think it is. I'm gonna pause here 1 second. It is definitely not who I thought it was. Thought it was joystick former joystick editor Justin McElroy, who is now at Polygon. So yeah, I was wrong. Okay, so this comes from Justin McElroy at the CBC News. Like I said, half of cannabis polled. Yep, read that too fast. Half of Canadians polled support marijuana legalization. Majority believe if legalized, it should be limited to adults and come with a sales tax. Poll was conducted between February 23rd and 27th, 1,000 respondents. But while there is a disagreement over the question of legalization, there was more cohesion on the question of what should be done if it came to pass. Quote, it appears Canadians have an economic perspective in mind as they consider the issue of legalizing marijuana in the country, end quote, said Andrew Innes, president of NRG Research Group. 60% also believe that legalization would increase consumption among minors. I say legalize marijuana. You get rid of drug trades. You get more tax money. That's what it's about, is all the money. I mean, that's really what it's about. Okay, next story comes from twincities.com. Roseville becomes first Minnesota city to ban sales of dogs, cats at pet stores. By Jamie Delage. City Council began discussions to prohibit sales last year after Har-Mar Pet Shop, the only store in the city that sells dogs and cats, received a troubling inspection report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The city pages knew the other pet stores in town, such as Petco and Chuck and Don's, sell supplies but don't sell dogs and cats. They do, however, host adoption events in the area. The council voted unanimously in favor of the ordinance, which takes effect in 6 months. Practice of selling dogs and cats in pet stores has been criticized by animal rights advocates. Gary Papineau, who owns Har-Mar Pet Shop, did not speak at Monday's meeting, but in previous hearings defended the care of his animals. Receive. I'm reading stuff way too fast. He said he personally inspects the breeders he uses and would be willing to pay a licensing fee and submit to regular city inspections. The Humane Society of the U.S. surveyed American Kennel Club breed clubs and found that 96% have issued statements or guidelines against the sale of dogs in pet stores. Quote, we know responsible breeders don't sell to pet stores, end quote. Quote, they want to make sure it's a good fit, end quote. Aw, there's a picture of a puppy. Aw, a spaniel. Quote, we feel like we rescued a dog, but we also feel like we supported a terrible industry at the same time, end quote. So yeah. Just adopt pets. They need good homes. Don't buy them. Don't buy them. Let's see if there's any good comments on this. Nope, no good comments. Okay, next story comes from IJ.org. Institute for Justice. Institute for Justice. Tonight, 9/8 Central. Only on television. Mississippi cops now need warrants to seize property. Oh, by Nick Sabilla. Mississippi became the latest state to tighten its civil forfeiture laws when Governor Phil Bryant signed a bill on Monday that will require warrants for police to seize property. Though civil forfeiture, law enforcement agencies do not need to file criminal charges or even secure a criminal conviction to permanently confiscate cash, cars, and other forms of personal property, which is true. They could pull you over if you have $10,000 in cash on you. They could take it from you if they want, because they can. It's the law, which is stupid. Under the newly signed bill, whenever an agency seizes property, it must obtain a seizure warrant from a circuit or county court within 3 business days of the seizure. So they can still seize it without the warrant, but they have to get the warrant afterwards, basically. Agencies that do not procure a warrant with that time frame cannot forfeit. Agencies that do not procure a warrant with that time frame cannot forfeit the property and must return it to its. That doesn't make sense. Agencies that do not procure a warrant with that time frame cannot forfeit the property and must. It should be must forfeit the property and must return it to its owner. Yes. Yeah, he got his words mixed up. In addition, agencies will not have to request prosecutors file for forfeiture within 30 days of a seizure. Most importantly, this new bill implements new transparency requirements to track seizure and forfeiture activity. For the first time, Mississippi will not have to record a description of the seized property, its estimated value, its final deposition, as well as if anyone attempted to contest the forfeiture. These records will then be uploaded to a public searchable website. Good for Mississippi. Yeah. Good for Mississippi. Let's see what some of the comments are. Top comment. It is a bleep shame that a law has to be passed to require a warrant. Took some words out there. Warrant to seize property. I'm no lawyer, but doesn't civil forfeiture completely violate the Fourth Amendment? It might. I don't know. Depends on what the courts argue. Second comment, wow, Mississippi is leading the pack on something positive in the news for once. And it goes on to say Mississippi is not as backwards as people would have you believe. Another comment, we're getting this in Indiana soon. Good. Good all around. Next story comes from ABC7.com. Secretary of State Tillerson used alias in some climate emails at Exxon. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson used a secondary email address under the name Wayne Tracker to send and receive information about climate change and other topics during his tenure at ExxonMobil, according to NY State's Attorney General's office. The company's spokesperson, Alan Jeffers, said the account was mostly used while he, as in Tillerson, was traveling to ensure he'd see an item in a secure and timely way without having to sort through its regular email inbox. Blah, blah, blah. Quote, media reports indicating that emails to or from this address were exclusively for climate-related topics are false, end quote, the statement said. Quote, the very fact the Attorney General's office has these emails is because they were produced in response to a subpoena, end quote. Article goes on to say, it is not unheard of for business executives to maintain alias email accounts for inner circle communications. Why? When you do that, it seems like you're doing shady stuff that you don't want people to know about. The company also said, quote, it believes the risk of climate change is clear and warrants action, end quote. Tillerson's middle name is Wayne, but the company did not explain the origin of the name Wayne Tracker. State Department Deputy Spokesman Mark Toner said in a call with reporters today that in his current role, Tillerson, quote, uses only his Department of State email address to conduct official business, and he does comply with all federal record-keeping requirements, end quote. So, again, I mean, it makes you look shady using another email to do business with. I mean, if you have a personal email, okay, but use it for personal. If you have a company email, you use it for company matters. But if you create another email address and use that for company affairs, and that looks shady, makes you look like you're doing something bad, even if you're not. Not saying he did, not saying he didn't. Just saying it makes it look like it. Next story comes from VancouverSun.com. Woman loses bid for child support from ex-husband who was not the father. You are not the father. British Canadian or BC woman loses bid for child support from ex-husband who is not the father of her son. The article states, this is from Keith Fraser. The article states, a woman who concealed from her husband the fact that he was not the father of her son has lost her bid for child support from him. That's funny. The couple had been married for 3 years when the son, only identified by the initial D in a court ruling, was born in March 2009. Oh, and the reason kids are not really, quote, identified is because they are not of legal age. So they gave the kid a initial to probably say, hey, this is who this kid is, but to keep his identity secret. The husband, identified by the took it for granted that he was the child's natural father, but it turned out that the birth was apparently the result of a dalliance. I don't know what that is. Between his wife, identified as and another man. In the ruling, BC Supreme Court Justice Robin Bayard said that it is not clear how or when the question of the child's true parentage came up or what led the parties to agree to paternity testing. But, let's see. DNA lab results confirmed that the respondent in the case, the husband, was not the dad. Quote, not surprisingly, the respondent was crestfallen and crestfallen and felt upset and betrayed. By this time, the child was 4 years old. The couple were living in Ontario prior to the divorce in 2014. At the divorce hearing, she admitted that her husband was not the child's biological father and sought no child support, with the Ontario judge warning them that paternity was not necessarily determinative of child support obligations. After the woman moved to BC, British Columbia, the husband heard nothing more from her until February 2016, when she filed for child support through BC courts. She claimed he had acted as a parent during this time and alleged that he carried on as a parent until the time of the divorce. But, let's see, the husband said he'd not had any contact with the boy since a few months after the separation. In the ruling, Baird noted that there was no doubt that when this child was born, the husband believed him to be his natural child, with his name appearing on the boy's birth certificate and him caring and providing for the child in every respect for a short time. Quote, this child would, of course, have considered the respondent to be his father, although they have now been estranged for longer than they lived together, and his memories are bound to become vague and dim, end of quote, said the judge. The judge, who noted that there was no evidence of who the real father was, concluded that while the husband had stood in as a parent, the, quote, whole thing was based on serious and fundamental misapprehension of fact, end quote. It would not be, end quote, the least bit fair, end quote, to order the husband to bear full responsibility for supporting the child. How does this warrant a news article? Seriously. Woman wants man to pay child support when the kid is not his. How? I'm speechless. Good, he doesn't have to pay it. I mean, seriously. That's just, yeah. Some of the comments are, I once represented a man who had been taken to court by the State Child Support Enforcement Division in Virginia. If a mother applies for benefits for the child, the father can be ordered to reimburse the state. Big problem. The child was an infant, and the husband had been in prison for 3 years, and Virginia doesn't have conjugal visitation. Mom even admitted that her husband wasn't the father. They still wouldn't drop the case. Fortunately, the judge saw the absurdity of it, and it all went away. See, there is hope. There is some good in people. And the system. Another comment. I got a client who's being sued for back child support. The catch is he's always lived with the mother until just recently. And he supported her and her son. No relation. And their 2 kids. She only started a job at the end of last year. Now it keeps going on and on and on and on. Here's another comment. This is almost as good as the story my lawyer friend told me of a client who wanted child support from her ex despite the fact that he had custody. That person doesn't know what child support is then, apparently. That's funny. Another comment. I've heard at least a few stories of people who have had this happen with varying degrees of success on the side of the person asking for child support. One was even a story about a grandmother demanding child support from the father after the mom took custody of the child. Wow. People just want money, it seems. This happened to a friend of mine. His ex-wife took him to court for more child support, even though they had 50-50 custody. The judge ordered him to stop paying and ordered her to pay him more than he had been paying in the first place. Not long after that, she kidnapped her kid and lost custody completely. That'll do it to you. Yep. That'll do it to you. Next story comes from the BBC. And it is 2 Russian spies indicted by U.S. Department of Justice over hacking 500 $500 million. 500 million Yahoo user accounts. Let's see. This relates to the 2014 breach affecting 500 million Yahoo user accounts. The members of the FSB, the Russian intelligence agency, conspired with criminal hackers, according to DOJ officials announcing the changes. Previously, Yahoo said state-sponsored hackers were behind the 2014 breach affecting 500 million. They are also alleged to have targeted Google accounts. The article states hacking was directed at Russian and U.S. government officials, including security, diplomatic, and military personnel, according to the Department of Justice. One of the alleged hackers has been on the FBI's most wanted cyber criminals. Wow, these look like kids. Like kids. Like kids. Like, yeah. Dang. The suspect in question was aided by the FSB, who, according to the DOJ, provided him with, quote, sensitive FSB law enforcement and intelligence information that would have helped him avoid detection by U.S. and other law enforcement agencies outside Russia. End quote. Quote, we would hope Russia would respect our criminal justice system and respect the Russia. They don't care. I'm not going to finish that sentence. Article goes on to say Yahoo was criticized for the delay in informing users about the 2014 breach. The stolen data included names, email address, telephone numbers, dates of birth, and encrypted passwords. But not credit card data, according to Yahoo. Last year, users were advised to change their passwords. Oh, play with fire, you're gonna get burned. And what are they gonna do with 500 million Yahoo accounts? Are they gonna go through them one by one? Honestly, what are you looking for? I just don't. You gotta be looking for something, but what would you be looking for? I don't know. One more story. Alaska residents warned to give grumpy moose their space. Mooses? Moose. I guess moose is plural. This comes from Yahoo. From Dan Joling. And this comes from Anchorage. Alaska wildlife officials warned people to keep their distance from grumpy moose after 2 close calls this past weekend. One of the animals walked up behind a woman tending chickens in her city of Homer on Sunday and started eating chicken food from a bucket she carried. When she turned, the startled moose kicked her. Quote, it pulled its nose out of the bucket, looked at her, reared back, and kicked her right in the noggin. End quote. That was said by Jason Herman, assistant area biologist for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. Another agitated moose twice charged skiers in a lift line Saturday at a resort, a downhill ski venue in the resort town of Girdwood. No one was hurt, but authorities can't get over that. But authorities advised resort officials to shoot and kill the animal Sunday to remove the threat to skiers. It's a moose in the middle of Alaska. Sorry. Quote, not all moose are looking for a fight right now, but they do tend to get a little cranky this time of year, end quote, Marsh said. The way this is written. In summer, moose eat lush leaves, but turn to twigs and other woody material in winter, which are not as nutritious. Had to yawn there. The article says the animals are tired and ready for spring. Most Alaska residents know better than to get near a moose in mating season or between a moose mother and a new calf. But they generally regard the animals as docile. At the ski resort, the moose was positioned at a blind corner. Skiers had to pass the animal to get to the left line. This is funny. It's kind of like, only in Alaska would this happen. The young moose defended itself as it would against a wolf. They rear up on their back legs a little bit and, wow. That's funny. I mean, and they're calling it a grumpy moose. That's clever. But really, is it moose or mooses? Like geese? Like goose and geese? Moose? Meese? Meese? Okay, grumpy moose it is. That was the last story for this episode. Hope you had fun. Hope you laughed a little. Hope you learned something. And that's it. It's over. So, Until next time, good night and good luck.